Hello everyone, welcome back to Data Crafting with Sneha. Today we are going to solve a very interesting problem which is about finding the user counts who are active on some weekdays and some weekends. So let's first understand the problem properly. We have to write a query to get the count of users active on both weekdays and weekends. So, number of users who are active on at least some weekdays, which means Monday, Friday, and at least some weekends, which means Saturday or Sunday. Okay. And important point is it is not necessary that users should be active on all weekdays and all weekends. They should they should be active on some weekdays and some weekends. Right. Now let's understand our table. Our table name is user activity. It has a three columns. User ID, which is the user identifier. Next, activity date, which tells on which date the activity happened, and is active, which is one if the user is active on that date and zero if inactive. Okay. Now, how do we know if a date is weekday or weekend? Right. So for that, in SQL Server, we can use date part function. Date part weekday activity date from user activity. Okay. So date part function to extract the weekday number from date. Now I will run this query and see as as day number. Okay. Now I will run this query and see. In the output, it will show the weekday number from this date. So, in SQL Server, the default setting is 1 means Sunday, 1 means Sunday, 2 means Monday, up to 7 means Saturday. Okay, so let's see the user ID 1. User ID 1 active on all days. 1 means active. So user ID 1 is active on all days, which is weekends and weekdays also. Right? So this user will be counted in our output. Okay. Now let's look at the user ID 3. In user ID 3 is active only on Saturday. Yeah. Only on only active on Sunday and Saturday, which means weekend, but not on any weekday. See, user ID 3 not active on any weekday, but active on weekends. So this user will not be counted because he is missing weekday activity, right? He is active on only weekends, not any weekday. Right. So this user will not be counted. Okay. Next, look at the user ID. Mm, Look at the user ID 6. User ID 6 active on some weekdays. See, user ID 6 active on 2, 3, 4, which means Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. User ID 6 is active, right? And some weekends too. So, user ID 6 active on Saturday as well as Sunday. So, this user will be counted in our output. Okay. So, if a user active in at least one weekday and at least one weekend, user is active on at least one weekday and at least one weekend, we will include that user in our final output. Otherwise, we will exclude that user. Okay, so pause the video here and try it out yourself. So let's get started. Select from user activity. We will select user ID. User ID. Okay. First, we will select only the active records. So for that, we will select user ID from user activity. Now we will use where clause is active equal to 1. Okay. So this query will give us the only active records. Okay. This query will give us the only active records. Now we will use group by clause user ID and we will use having to check conditions. Having count of case when. Now here we will use date part function. Date part weekday activity date between 2 and 6, then 1 n greater than 0, which means at least user must have at least one activity between Monday to Friday, right? So it will count 1, right? And now our second condition and count case when date part weekday activity date in 1 or 7, then 1 n greater than 0. So user must have at least one activity on Saturday or Sunday. Then it will count, right? If both conditions are greater than 0, then this will be included in our output, right? Now I will run this query and see. These are the users who active on some weekday and some weekends, right? Now we have to count of users who are active on some weekdays and some weekends. Okay. Now I will make it as a city with city as select from city. Now we will use count function. Count of user ID as active user count from city. Okay. Now I will run this query. Then we will get the count of users who are active on some weekday and some weekdays. Okay, so we get 5 users are active on some weekday and some weekend. Okay, so in this query, first we will select only the active users. Okay, only the active records, right? Then we will use having clause for conditions. So these conditions for weekday, right? And these conditions for weekend. And now we will count the users who are active on some weekday and some weekend. Okay, I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.